Revealed, a poor girl's amazing call to a Mafia boss that transformed his son's life forever. Jenna Miller had no idea that tonight would be different. Frustration coursed through her veins as she collapsed onto her bed, surrounded by crumpled bills and textbooks littering her modest room. The weight of life, her mother working 2 jobs, the gnawing fear of eviction, and the relentless social pressures at school had become unbearable. Every moment felt like a battle, and she was exhausted from fighting. Pressing her fingers on her phone, she scrolled through contacts, her heart racing at the thought of reaching out to anyone. It was a mistake, her normal life turned upside down as she accidentally pressed call on a mysterious number she didn't recognize. "Who is this?" A deep voice rumbled through the receiver, sending a shiver down her spine. Panic surged. She was talking to Marco the Don Moretti, a name whispered with fear in her neighborhood. The world of crime, danger, it felt surreal. "I'm sorry, wrong number." She stammered, but curiosity held her hostage. "No such thing as a wrong number," he said, his tone smooth yet chilling. Let us talk. A part of her screamed to hang up, but a fragment of intrigue stifled her fear. As the conversation unfolded, she found herself revealing fragments of her life, her dreams of becoming an artist, of escaping this grind. For the first time in a long time, someone listened. He revealed to her a side of his life, the truth behind the power that seemed so appealing. "My son Anthony lives in a mansion, yet he feels trapped." The irony, the contrast between their lives, sparked something inside her. Their lives intertwined, 2 different worlds grappling with their cages. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A week later, Jenna was sitting at her kitchen table, paintbrushes and spray cans scattered around her like a chaotic storm. Secret murals. In the dead of night, they would breathe life into walls, telling stories that no one else saw. The thrill of rebellion danced in her veins. Art, emotion, a bond that felt genuine in a world filled with false smiles. But then, tension spiraled upwards. Marco's voice became a tether, oscillating between protective father and powerful mob boss. He discovered their secret, her heart raced, terror clawing at her gut. Marco's wrath would be immediate, calculated. "You're in way over your head. This isn't a game," he warned. What could a girl like her know about danger? Yet, that fear fueled her resolve. The mural flashed in her mind, vibrant with color and emotion, a reflection of her existence and Anthony's. Could art truly bridge their worlds? Parental expectations were smothering both of them, yet somehow, their connection felt dangerous and exhilarating. In the midst of chaos, Jenna felt the walls closing in. Would Marco's fears extinguish the flicker of hope she clung to? Could she really step beyond the shadow of his legacy, especially for Anthony? Just as she began to see the dawn within this chaos, she knew a choice loomed, one that could alter everything. Would the darkness swallow her dreams whole or illuminate a path long left untraveled? Jenna sat on the bed, staring at the mural she had sketched on her easel in the dim light of her room. She could already envision the vibrant colors splashing against the drab wall of an abandoned warehouse, the one she and her friends had claimed as their canvas. It was an escape, a chance to lay bare the chaos swirling in her mind and heart. Yet, beneath that excitement, a gnawing anxiety lurked. Marco's warning looped through her thoughts, a persistent echo. "You're in way over your head." The taste of freedom was intoxicating, but the weight of Marco's expectations loomed over her like dark clouds. Could she really navigate this path without succumbing to the danger it promised? It wasn't just the threat of Marco's wrath that frightened her, it was what it might reveal about herself. Could she rise to meet her ambitions, or had she already signed up for a wayward journey? A decision had to be made. As the sun began to set, casting an orange glow through her window. Jenna felt the urgency pull her towards action. She wanted to paint her truth, but she also yearned for a meaningful connection to Anthony, whose struggles mirrored her own in a world defined by rigid expectations. She was stepping into their reality, a realm both thrilling and intimidating. Resilience flickered in her chest. At that moment, she committed to the mural. Her fingers tingled as she envisioned every stroke representing her fight for her own identity, a rebellion against the labels forced upon her. If she could articulate her truth through art, perhaps Anthony could find solace in his entrapment, too. Their stories were interwoven in ways that felt destined, not accidental. After several hours of preparation, she gathered her supplies and made her way towards the abandoned warehouse. The night was alive with whispers, and with every step, adrenaline coursed through her veins. As she approached the skeletal structure, she weighed the risk. The thrill of potential discovery sent chills down her spine. Yet the greater threat loomed larger, remaining stagnant in a life dictated by fear. Upon arrival, her heart hammered against her rib cage. The darkness of the warehouse enveloped her, but inside lurked the promise of innovation. She switched on a flashlight, illuminating the dusty interior with harsh beams. The walls waited hungrily, longing for the colors that would soon bring them to life. As she set to work, she felt connected to each stroke, pouring her anxieties, dreams, and waking determination into the wall. With every layer of paint, Jenna felt an awakening within herself. She was harnessing a skill that had been dormant for too long. This act of creation liberated her, reminding her of the artist she aspired to be. The hours melted away, and by the time Jenna paused to survey her handiwork, a new sense of clarity settled over her. She had woven a narrative through bright swathes of color and expressive forms, a raw representation of her essence. And then, just as she felt invincible, the creak of the door pierced the silence. Heart racing, Jenna turned, flashlight trembling in her hand. The silhouette that stepped into the beam chilled her blood. It was Anthony. The Dawn's son, his brow furrowed in confusion and something more. The moment hung heavy, a confluence of choices and consequences swirling around them. What would he think? Would he see the reflection of his own battles mirrored in her mural? And most importantly, what lay ahead for them both under the looming shadows of their father's legacies? As he approached, Jenna wrestled with her fear and hope, knowing that their entwined fates hung in the balance, thrillingly unpredictable. Would this be the moment they bridged their worlds, or would it fracture the bonds they were daring to forge? Jenna's breath hitched as she stood frozen, the flashlight beam trembling between them. Anthony's presence was imposing, yet his expression hinted at an unexpected vulnerability. His gaze fixed on the mural, absorbing the riot of colors like a sponge thirsting for understanding. Stripped of context, she could only observe the interplay of emotions across his face. Curiosity nestled beside apprehension. "What is this?" he finally asked, his voice low but edged with a growing intensity. It was a question that felt laden with more than mere inquiry. Jenna momentarily faltered, the weight of her intentions piercing through her confidence. Each color represented her struggle, her fight for authenticity, and now he stood witness, daring her to articulate the unspoken darkness that lay beneath. It's my story. I wanted to paint something real. Something that speaks." As she spoke, the weight of her own narrative unfolded. She plunged into a deeper explanation, driven by an urgency to connect. It's about breaking free. About fighting against what others expect of you. Her heart raced with vulnerability as she scanned his face for a reaction, hoping to find a flicker of comprehension. Anthony's brow furrowed even deeper, but Jenna could see a glimmer of recognition. Would he allow himself to feel the resonance of her words, to blend his own legacy with hers? "You think you're the only one struggling with expectations?" he challenged, his eyes narrowing slightly as if daring her to challenge his reality. The pang of frustration surged within her. This isn't about competition. It's about finding a way to be more than what people assign to us. More than our father's legacies. His posture softened slightly, the lines on his face loosening as he absorbed her words. There was tension, yes, but there was also a growing flicker of something unnameable curiosity, perhaps. Intrigued by this collision of their worlds, Jenna pushed on. Look at the colors, she urged, sweeping her arm out toward the mural. Each shade tells a part of my struggle. I might be from a different world, but what? He interrupted, his voice barely above a whisper now. Her pulse quickened and, without fully understanding her impulse, Jenna took a step closer. What if we shared the weight of our stories? Maybe together, we can create something that hasn't existed before. In that moment, she discovered a dawning realization: she could nudge him away from a path defined by fear and expectation, while carving out her own journey in the process. But would he truly take that step with her? Anthony hesitated, palpable indecision shadowing his features. Jenna could almost see the wheels turning in his mind, wrestling with the weight of possibility. Would he grasp it, or would he retreat into the familiar safety of his father's oppressive shadow? At that moment, something shifted. He stepped closer, allowing the light to bounce off his features, illuminating the shadows of his struggle. How could this, he gestured to the mural, possibly change anything? There's power in vulnerability, Jenna countered, her voice steady. If we reveal our truths, we can strip away the labels. You have a choice. You can be more than just the dawn's son. His eyes bore into hers, searching for sincerity beneath the layers of fear and expectation. Silence enveloped them, heavy with unspoken questions that lingered in the air like ghostly whispers. She felt the tension coiling tightly, as if it were tangible, thick and electric. Maybe we can create something together, he finally murmured, almost to himself, the walls of their circumstances vibrating with the potential of collaboration rather than isolation. Deep within, Jenna knew this was no mere artistic endeavor. This was a reckoning, an intersection of their stories that might challenge the very legacies that bound them. But as their worlds began to overlap, she felt the ominous weight of what was to come. Choosing to revolutionize her life and work meant implicating herself in his world. An internal struggle churned as the realization hit her: could she truly wade through the depths of his reality and emerge unscathed? With that thought solidifying like a stone within her chest, Jenna wondered if unveiling their intertwined stories would forge an artistic force strong enough to withstand the threats lurking beyond the light of their newfound connection. Would they both dare to confront the truths they had hidden? As they stood there together, the weight of those decisions hung thick. The journey ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, the moment of truth looming ever closer, ready to transform their lives in ways they had yet to understand. Jenna's heart raced as silence stretched between them, the uncharted territory of their conversation looming like shadows over the mural. This wasn't merely an artistic collaboration, it was an entwinement of her reality with Anthony's, each thread pulling taut against their fears and expectations. She had never before been confronted with the raw vulnerability of another person in such a profound way, and yet the urgency hung in the air, palpably inviting her to leap. With a sharp inhalation, she attempted to steady her resolve. If we really want to create something powerful, we have to be honest. It's about daring to face what we're afraid of. Each word resonated in her, echoing the fight she had always carried against the constraints placed upon her by her upbringing. She could see the moments flash across Anthony's face, where the boyish hope flickered against the weight of generations. Are you willing to risk it? Anthony's voice broke through her spiral of thoughts, his eyes searching for trepidation within her resolve. It was a question poised on the precipice of judgment and acceptance, and Jenna felt the edge of that uncertainty. Nothing has changed if we keep our stories locked away. There was a newfound tenacity in her voice, a fierce defiance that urged her forward. This wasn't just about art, it was about reclamation. Every brushstroke I painted is a reminder of what it costs to hide how we truly feel. I refuse to hide anymore. Anthony remained still, the weight of her words pressing into him. She recognized that he was wrestling with the idea of vulnerability, with the concept of being more than the boy labeled by his father's reputation. She took a step back, giving him room to breathe, to think, to feel. What if I'm not ready? He muttered, his apprehension hanging like fog in the air. Jenna clenched her jaw. She wanted to yell, to shake him from his stagnation, but she also understood the fear that gripped him tightly. Readiness isn't requirement to start, she replied softly, creating a connection he needed. It's okay to be unsure. But we have to take the first step. As they stared at each other, Jenna saw the flickering of something, a spark, perhaps. But doubt clouded Anthony's expression, his past clinging to him like a shadow. She sensed it, the oppressive legacy of his father, a weight she knew all too well from her own history. Maybe we should take it slow, he finally suggested, slowly breaking eye contact as if retreating back into his familiar world of safety. No, Jenna said firmly, surprising even herself with the strength of her resolution. This is about breaking free. I'm not sure how, but we need to jump together. The silence that ebbed between them felt thicker now, fraught with the weight of expectation and fear. Jenna's pulse raced, knowing that to engage fully with Anthony could cause her to stumble, but the realization that she had the power to catalyze change illuminated her in a way she hadn't expected. Let's start with our first brushstrokes, she offered, heart pounding, voice steady with purpose. A canvas, a shared space to build what lies unspoken. Allow ourselves to explore without limits. Okay, he finally acquiesced, a tentative agreement forged beneath the watchful eyes of their lingering pasts. But as they stood on the threshold of collaboration, something gnawed at the edges of Jenna's thoughts. Could either of them truly breach the chasms carved by their histories without losing themselves in the process? The thought loomed heavily, casting shadows longer and deeper. In the depths of her introspection, she realized that their journey would not only challenge their identities but also those who surrounded them. As their paths merged, Jenna felt the thrilling rush of adrenaline and a cold touch of fear. This was no simple artistic venture, it was a confrontation with their pasts. The mural on the wall suddenly appeared more than just an expression of her struggle, it was a daring tapestry of transformation that beckoned a reckoning. But lurking in the recesses of her mind was the truth that had yet to unfold, revealing the depths of who they were could easily unravel the very fabric they hoped to create. With that awareness surging through her, Jenna prepared to embrace the uncertainty the moment poised precariously at the edge of possibility. Could she and Anthony craft a narrative that not only transformed them but challenged the very legacies that clung to them? As anticipation electrified the air, Jenna knew the moment of truth was close, and the next chapter of her life was about to be painted bold, raw, and unfiltered. What remained uncertain was one crucial element: how would they face the growing shadows that threatened to consume their journey before it truly began? Jenna's fingers trembled slightly as she lifted a paintbrush, holding it like a torch against the encroaching darkness of uncertainty. The anticipation pulsed through the air, whether it radiated from Anthony or was a reflection of her own fears, she couldn't tell. The first stroke felt monumental, a bold mark against the white canvas that loomed before them, waiting for the life they aimed to infuse into it. Okay, I'm channeling your energy, she murmured aloud more to herself than to Anthony as she dipped the brush into vibrant blue paint. Positions shifted, the moment demanded action. As the bristles met the canvas, a wave of exhilaration and trepidation surged through her. Each stroke was an expression, a release of the bottled emotions that had long simmered beneath her skin. She stepped back, inhaling the scent of wet paint and feeling an unlikely hope begin to bloom within her. But as she surveyed the initial splashes of color, a confrontation with her own insecurities emerged. Would her creativity be enough to lure out the truths they both needed to confront? Anthony had picked up a brush as well, watching her with a strange intensity. A flicker of recognition passed between them as they began to create their own individual stories within that shared space. Yet the silence wasn't purely constructive, it trapped their unspoken fears. Jenna could feel the questions swirling in Anthony's mind, doubts that threatened to seep into the canvas like stubborn stains. What if it doesn't turn out like we imagined? He finally said, paintbrush hovering over his own blank section. It never turns out exactly as we imagine, Jenna replied, her voice steadier than her heart. That's not the point. It's about what we encounter along the way. But what if the imperfections revealed more than they wished to see? Anthony dipped his brush into a shade of gray, and for a moment, she saw the boy struggling to break free from his past. And yet, she also recognized something deeper, the potential for growth that lay beneath the layers of his apprehension. Art is about embracing the flaws, Anthony. Just like us. Her voice softened, compelling him to hear her beneath the noise of his fears. Without the cracks, we wouldn't have light to shine through. For a brief moment, he hesitated, pain flashing across his expression. This wasn't just about the mural, it was their lives, tangled and fragile, staring back at them from an unyielding surface. Maybe I should just stick to my safe colors, he muttered, his brush nervously hovering again. Jenna wanted to challenge him to take risks, but she knew firsthand the crushing weight of his father's expectations, the shadow cast over him like a looming specter. Take the leap, she urged, the heat of her resolve pushing against the cool air. You have a voice that needs to echo, Anthony. Let yourself be heard. Slowly, he began to paint, uncertain strokes clashing with the vibrant colors she had chosen. The gray met the blue, and this unplanned collision fueled Jenna's excitement. It was chaos, yes, but also a beautiful metaphor for their lives intertwining. As they worked side by side, Jenna felt the strange alchemy of vulnerability and courage. The canvas was revealing a truth they both needed, a messy tapestry of fears, hopes, and power. She could hardly predict where this journey would lead them, but she could sense an undeniable shift taking place within her. Minutes turned into hours, and as they reached a tentative conclusion for the day, Jenna's heart swelled. They had confronted the silence, cracked its rigid shell with each splash of color and well-aimed stroke. Yet, the weight of what lay ahead loomed large. Would they advance together from this point, or would the shadows that haunted them pull them back? In that quiet chaos, Jenna felt the hard realization settle within her bones. The story they were weaving was not just about art, but an emergence into their truest selves. There was power in this honesty, and it carried an invitation to act. As they stepped back to admire their work, a question lingered unspoken in the fading light: was this mural merely the beginning of their transformation, or would it guide them into darker truths they both feared? The doubts twisted in her mind, but another part of her bristled with excitement. Jenna sensed that the larger canvas of their lives was just beginning to unfurl, a narrative yet to be written. What would the next brushstrokes reveal about their intertwined fates? The moment loomed with possibility, a prelude to a confrontation neither had prepared for. She could feel the shadows shifting, ready to challenge everything they'd begun to create. Jenna's heart raced in the aftermath of their messy creation. The mural loomed before them, a chaotic blend of colors that hinted at their entangled emotions, yet she found herself at a crossroads. Art had always been a safe place where she could hide, express, and explore, but now it demanded a different kind of confrontation, one that reached beyond the strokes of paint and into the depths of her personal truths. What's next? Anthony's voice was tentative, breaking through the warmth of their shared accomplishment. It was a question laced with an urgency that hooked into her gut. Are we going to keep working on this? She could sense the hesitance lacing his inquiry, the anchoring fear that twisted in his own heart. This mural was more than just art, it was a reflection of who they were and who they could become. Jenna stood at the precipice, yearning to push forward but equally terrified of what might unfold if they did. Let us not dwell on what comes next just yet, she replied, her voice steadier than her thoughts. Let us just enjoy what we've created tonight. For once, let us not pressure ourselves. She knew their bond had begun to evolve beneath the brushstrokes, yet she sensed the underlying need to truly connect with Anthony to expose the vulnerabilities hidden beneath their layered lives. What had once seemed an abstract notion of intimacy now felt like an urgent call to delve into something real and raw. Maybe what we need is to talk, she proposed, surprising even herself with the suggestion. The words hung in the air, provocative and stark. The canvas vibrated with the tension of their unvoiced fears waiting to break free. Talk. He echoed, uncertainty prickling his brow. There was a flicker of something anticipation, perhaps. Yes, she urged, barely concealing her own trepidation. About what this mural means. About us. About our pasts. Can we do that? The silence that followed was thick with unspoken confessions, the air electric as Anthony regarded her with a mix of curiosity and dread. For a moment, she feared he might shut down. Instead, he dipped his chin slightly, the barest hint of resolve flashing across his expression. "Okay," he finally said, the word buoyed by a whisper of hesitation. As they settled into the moment of vulnerability, Jenna felt an unyielding wave of determination swell within her. She had spent too long in shadows, fearing her own voice, acting only in response to the demands of others. The time for change had arrived not just in the canvas before her, but within herself. "What do you see when you look at this?" Jenna asked, gesturing toward the mural. He studied it for a few moments, his gaze assessing the blend of colors in a way she had never seen before. "I see chaos, and kind of hope." The revelation caught her off guard, and in that shared silence, Jenna felt a familiar weight lift. "Chaos is part of life, part of growth," she replied, her voice softening. "Just like our insecurities. When we paint, it's as if we're whispering our truths to the canvas. What if instead we started whispering them to each other?" Her heart pounded, the challenge echoing back to her. She needed to unearth the fragments of her own history, to speak openly and honestly without the fear of judgment swallowing her whole. Could she really dive deep and share the truths that had haunted her? "Okay, let us be honest," Anthony said quietly, the tension radiating between them intensifying. "I've avoided talking about anything real for too long. This isn't just about painting, is it?" Jenna felt the shift solidify between them. "No, it isn't. It's about who we are and who we want to become." As she met his gaze, a flicker of shared understanding ignited. They were not just painting a mural, they were painting their lives, and perhaps, together they could face whatever lay ahead. But just as the conversation threatened to plunge them into deeper waters, Anthony's phone buzzed, breaking the moment like glass shattering in silence. He glanced at the screen, and Jenna noticed the shift in his demeanor, the tension reappearing in his shoulders. "Excuse me for a second," he murmured, stepping away, but Jenna could feel a thread of unease coil around both of them. In that instant, she realized their exploration was far from over. The shadows loomed larger than either had anticipated, and the truth felt just out of reach. They were standing at a precipice, ready to leap, but the landing was uncertain. What lay ahead was as murky as the paint strokes that danced on their unfinished mural, waiting for the touch of their hands to shape it into something more meaningful. Would they be able to uncover the depths of their shared truths, or would outside forces reroute their connection entirely? As Anthony's tense voice filled the air, Jenna felt the weight of their incredible potential teetering on the edge of chaos, and she knew it was time to confront the truth standing before them. The real question. Were they willing to embrace the journey that lay ahead? Jenna's eyes flickered to Anthony as he stepped away, the weight of his retreat an unwelcome intrusion on the fragile moment they had begun to forge. The phone call seemed innocuous enough, but she sensed an unsettling urgency in his posture, like a lifeboat drifting away from shore just as the tide began to turn. Her gaze shifted back to the mural, each vibrant swirl seemingly alive, pulsating with untold stories eager to escape. Jenna stomped down the tide of worry rising within her. Instead, she focused on the brushstrokes, each layer a reminder of the raw emotions they had just started to unveil. The cacophony of colors mirrored her life, unruly, beautiful, chaotic, but they were just colors, not enough to unravel the complexities of her existence alone. As she turned her attention to the surrounding studio, the faint odor of paint and varnish muddled with the scent of turpentine filled her lungs, grounding her in the reality that she could shape her narrative, a notion that felt simultaneously liberating and daunting. If they were going to truly connect, she would have to navigate her own fears first. The soft hum of Anthony's voice blended with the sparse ambient noises surrounding them, yet she could not make out his words. What was he discussing? The disconnection made a knot form in her chest. Was he voicing concerns that threatened to splinter the budding connection they had achieved? She had hoped their truth-telling would foster intimacy, not fracture it. Taking a breath, Jenna leaned against the canvas and allowed herself to close her eyes briefly. She needed to feel steady. She needed to anchor herself to something tangible. Remembering her reasons for being here twisted in her mind, unfolding memories of past doubts and insecurity. She had long wondered if she truly had a voice worth listening to. Deep down, a whisper told her she had not just bravery but the artistry to carve out a life of her own design. Still, that whisper became muffled when her past surfaced. The little girl inside her who once scribbled in notebooks, dreaming of more, had grown accustomed to watching others take the lead. Now, she must confront that girl and agree to embrace the beauty of imperfection, chaos included. As Anthony returned, her determination solidified. She knew that if they were to guide each other toward personal truths, she must first unfurl her own story. With her heart racing, she foisted her hesitations aside and opened her mouth. "Anthony," she started, her voice steadier than it felt, "can I share something?" He paused, his brows drawn together in attentive concern. "Sure. The colors we created," she gestured toward the mural again, "remind me of a lot of lost parts of myself. Each layer has its weight and beauty. I've tried to construct a picture of who I should be, instead of embracing who I am." Vulnerability materialized in her voice now, dissolving remnants of trepidation. "I want to be authentic, not just for my art but in every aspect of my life." Anthony's scrutiny shifted to admiration, and she saw him lean in, as if inviting her to relinquish all fears. "What makes you feel authentic?" he pressed delicately. The question resounded within her, akin to a lifeline. She could feel the thoughts colliding in her mind, but instead of the anxiety that typically accompanied these explorations, she found clarity amid the chaos. "Being honest, sharing my real feelings without censoring myself." His expression grew serious, and Jenna realized she was emitting an energy she had long concealed. Something in her shifted as embers of determination sparked anew. "I want to confront my fear of being inadequate and prove to myself through art and connection that I am enough, exactly as I am." Almost without thinking, she moved closer to him. Each step felt filled with purpose, a declaration of intent. She hoped to unveil not only her layers before him but also the uncharted valleys within herself. "And you?" Her mouth formed the question naturally, creating space for reciprocation. "What do you want?" He swallowed hard, his internal war evident as Jenna maintained steady eye contact. The inquiry hung in the air, thick with potentiality. "I think I want that too," he eventually breathed. "To be enough. To be real." In that moment, Jenna realized they were building a bridge, the very act of sharing revealing their collective vulnerabilities and individual aspirations. There, she felt the beginnings of a promise extending beyond the mural. But before any further revelations could emerge, an unsettling tension washed over him again. She noticed the way his shoulders tightened, an expression crossing his face that whispered of more than just emotional baggage. Something external loomed. "Sorry, I just..." Anthony's words stumbled before he trailed off, eyeing his phone again, a fresh sense of dread creeping between them. The connection they had begun to create now felt threatened, and that chilling realization sparked a primal response within her. "What is it?" Jenna prompted, the urgency palpable. He ran a hand through his hair, realization dawning hard against the burgeoning connection they had sought to forge. "I have to deal with something." In that moment, the promise of their emerging truths hung suspended between them, as elusive as it had been tangible just a heartbeat before. The air thickened with questions. Was the revelation trapped within them strong enough to withstand the interference of whatever haunted him? And as she braced for whatever was to come next, the unsettling reality loomed, but Jenna could no longer avert her gaze. She would confront this head-on, both for herself and for whatever bond lay trembling before her. What had she stumbled upon? What risks would she take to confront the truths intertwining their lives? Jenna stood at the brink of discovery, knowing that the moment of choice lay ahead, one that would demand everything she had begun to embrace. Jenna's heart thudded in her chest as Anthony turned away, the familiar tension between them morphing into something charged with urgency. She watched him pace, his body language speaking volumes, an internal storm brewing behind those expressive eyes. The promise of authenticity hung in the silence like the paint drying on the mural behind her, now a vivid testament to her desire for change. This was not only about him, it was about her as well. Each moment of anxiety twisted into expectation. What truth was pushing him away, and what might be at stake if he chose not to share it? Her own fears, once tethered to the ambiguity of self-worth, suddenly felt far less significant in the face of the emotional wall he appeared to be erecting. Taking a deep breath, she sought to regain her steadiness. She couldn't control his decisions, but she had a choice about her reaction to them. The mural stood as a metaphor of beautiful chaos that could only be experienced if one dared to embrace the discomfort. Jenna decided she would not retreat into silence. Instead, she would meet his tension with her own vulnerability. "Anthony," she ventured, her voice steady but tender. "Whatever it is, we can face it together. You don't have to go through this alone." The weight of her words hung in the air, an invitation for him to hold on to her rather than pull away. He turned to her, visibly conflicted. For an instant, it seemed he might confide in her. But instead, he clenched his jaw, drawing further inward. My dad. He's not well. And I've been juggling deadlines while trying to figure things out." The ache in her chest deepened as she absorbed his admission. He was carrying an enormous burden, one that could shatter anyone less resolute. Yet, she recognized within his struggle an opportunity for growth both for him and for herself. This moment, fraught with uncertainty, was a stark reminder that life's most profound connections often formed in shared adversity. "Your art is important, but so is your family," she urged, instinctively reaching out, her hand brushing against the sinewy knots of tension in his arm. "You can show them you care. You're allowed to be there for yourself, too. It doesn't have to be one or the other." His eyes widened, and for the first time, she sensed a sliver of relief intertwined with his burden. "You really think so?" he asked, vulnerability quivering at the edges of his voice. "Yes," she replied, emboldened by her own burgeoning courage. "We often think we need to suppress parts of ourselves to handle life's demands, but in reality, that makes it harder. Letting your true self shine is the antidote to the chaos. You are strong, Anthony. Let that strength guide you." The corners of his mouth twitched, a flicker of hope attempting to surface. "Maybe you're right," he said softly, though skepticism lingered in his tone. "Why not explore that? Explore what you're feeling," she encouraged, lowering herself onto the edge of the nearby work table, allowing the distance between them to close. "Art has always been a medium for truth. Use it. Make it a way to navigate this. Every color you mix is a piece of that journey." Her own words carried a weight she scarcely expected. Jenna had always viewed the world through the lens of her insecurities, but with Anthony, she began to understand that sharing burden could ignite empowerment. And in turn, perhaps he would help her confront her own encumbrances. The studio remained a sanctuary, yet their conversation seemed to morph the atmosphere into something electric. She could sense the dawning recognition in Anthony that perhaps, just perhaps, their vulnerabilities could create a resilience neither had considered before. But as his features softened, a shadow briefly crossed his face. "I need to go," he said, breaking the fragile spell. His voice now laced with a mixture of urgency and regret, the very fabric of their connection seemed in danger of unraveling. "Wait," Jenna said, instinctively reaching out to stop him. "Can we find a way to keep this connection? It feels too important to let slip away." The conviction in her plea reverberated in the space around them. He hesitated, caught between obligations and a burgeoning bond. "I'll try to call you tonight." "I don't want to lose this," he reassured, yet the uncertainty still shadowed his gaze, dark and uncertain. As he walked toward the exit, Jenna felt a pang of longing and understanding that her own growth hinged not just on Anthony's choices but on her determination to persist in sharing herself authentically. They were navigating a labyrinthine path filled with uncertainties, but every color she layered had painted a new potential within her. But as the door clicked shut behind him, an unsettling silence settled in, thick with questions. Had they genuinely made progress, or had they simply skimmed the surface, leaving the deeper truths untouched? As the echoes of unanswered questions reverberated in her mind, Jenna turned back to the mural, now a landscape of possibility. She had taken a step, yet more were required. The choice to remain steadfast in her journey awaited her attention. What if she could transform not just her art but every aspect of her life through this new understanding? With each stroke of her brush, she decided she would embrace her own chaos. She would not linger in the realm of uncertainties but instead carve out a path imbued with purpose, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. The moment of truth beckoned, and she was about to step into it both for herself and for Anthony. And so, with determination swelling within her, Jenna picked up the brush once more to explore the depths of authenticity yet to be revealed. Little did she know, the day would soon arrive when that brush would become a wand, unraveling secrets that had long remained hidden, leading her toward a confrontation that would forever alter her understanding of who she truly could become. Jenna immersed herself in her mural, strokes of paint reflecting swirling emotions as she pushed through the chaos of color and texture. She felt a sense of urgency, not only to capture her evolving thoughts but also to confront the deeper layers of her own identity. Each brushstroke seemed to resonate with her earlier conversation with Anthony, a meeting of vulnerability that lingered like the remnants of a dream. The air pulsed with the echo of what had happened, and even in solitude, she could almost hear his voice reassuring her. The colors she selected traversed a spectrum of feelings, from the sharp reds of anxiety to calming blues that brought her a sense of peace. In this act of creation, she sought to reclaim herself. Art had always been her sanctuary, a place where she could dig deeper than the surface of societal expectations and her own self-doubt. But now, she realized it was more a beacon for growth. The more she painted, the more she felt entwined with her fears and hopes, guided by the convictions she'd just begun to uncover. But as the hues mingled, shadows of self-doubt began to coil around her again. Was she capable of the transformation she yearned for? Could she truly harness her experiences with Anthony, shaping them into fuel for her own evolution? The fear of vulnerability threatened to strangle her resolve. What if she allowed herself to be seen, only to find that the world wasn't ready for her authenticity? Obligation seeped back into her mind, the responsibilities of her day job, the looming deadlines, the risk of pursuing her artistic ambitions. The relentless pressure to conform and to succeed weighed her down, almost stifling. She knew she had a choice: either to wither under the expectations of the world or to rise, forging her own path ahead. Jenna paused, gazing at the mural. In its intricate chaos, she saw a reflection of herself, fragmented yet beautiful, a testament to survival against the noise of life. Inspiration surged through her veins, stirring her heart anew. With renewed determination, she dipped her brush in bold gold paint, a color symbolizing potential and wealth of spirit. Whatever it takes, she mused, wiping her brow and finding purpose beyond mere artistic expression. I need to confront my fears just as I encouraged Anthony to confront his. The truth coursed through her like an electric current, her journey was interconnected with his. Both of them were at a crossroads, teetering on the threshold between their troubles and the promise of self-actualization. The thought ignited the embers of her resolve. Perhaps the act of reaching out, of creating connection, could also transform her trajectory. What if she actively sought out experiences that forced her to be authentic, and could that openness inspire Anthony in return? The potential for shared growth flashed like an unexpected spark in her mind. The question was no longer if she could take the leap, but rather how to navigate the unknown. That evening, she mapped out a plan for not just her art but for her interactions with Anthony. She decided to send him a text, a message tinged with honesty and an invitation to explore their connection further. She had to express the depth of what she felt and the potential she saw in both of them. Hey, Anthony. I know things are tough for you. I truly believe we can help each other through this. Let us meet tomorrow. Just to talk, no pressure, just honesty. Let us harness this chaos together. The minute she hit send, a sense of empowerment washed over her. She had acted, she had placed her intentions into the universe. As she stepped back from her mural, she noticed how the golden swirls seemed to glitter amidst the chaos, drawing the eye with a promise of clarity ahead. With an unexpected weight lifted, she grasped that this was more than a mere message, it was a commitment to the unknown. In those moments of darkness and uncertainty, Jenna felt the stirring winds of change at her back. But just as anticipation filled the room, a persistent doubt tugged at her consciousness. Would Anthony accept her invitation? Would he remain willing to deepen their connection? Suddenly, the door swung open, and Jenna turned, breath catching in her throat. The unexpected presence brought with it a sudden rush of urgency. What if he's here to say something important? She wondered, as the anticipation hung thick in the air. In that instant, Jenna realized she was standing at the cusp of something monumental, poised on a ledge where choices waited to be made. Unbeknownst to her, the encounter ahead would challenge everything she had ignited within herself, forcing them both to confront deeper truths and perhaps, help break down the walls they had so carefully constructed. Jenna stood frozen, the doorway framing a silhouette that made her heart race. As the figure stepped into the light, the familiar features of Anthony came into focus. He looked weary but resolute, and in that moment, she felt an exhilarating shift within herself. This wasn't just a chance encounter, it felt like destiny weaving their stories together in an intricate tapestry. "Hey," Anthony said, his voice tentative but layered with urgency. "I got your message." There was something different in his tone, a determination that made her pulse quicken. Without waiting for an invitation, he stepped into the space between them, anxiety radiating off him like heat from a flame. Jenna could see he had been wrestling with his emotions, perhaps even the reality of the expectations that shadowed him. His eyes darted around the studio before locking onto the mural that stood as evidence of their shared journey. "What do you think?" she asked, her voice steady, although her insides churned with anticipation. "It's where we started unraveling things, right?" He took a step closer, absorbing the chaotic amalgamation of colors, the reds, blues, shadows, and light that danced across the canvas. "It's beautiful. It's alive," Anthony said slowly, as if recognizing that the mural reflected not only her struggles but their intertwined fates as well. "Just like us," Jenna responded, grounding her resolve. "It was now or never. I thought about what you shared the last time we spoke. You don't have to face this alone, you know. We can navigate our realities together." The rawness of her words hung in the air. Would he allow himself to lean into this connection, even as the weight of his father's legacy pressed heavily on him? Anthony turned to face her, and she saw uncertainty swirled with a flicker of something else, a readiness perhaps. "It's complicated, Jenna," he began, but she could see the flicker of curiosity sparking beneath the surface. "That's the point," she cut in, her voice steady but filled with warmth. "Life is complicated. But we can carve out a space where we can be real, together. It might not solve everything, but it's worth exploring. I chose to embrace chaos in my art and in my life. Can you do that too?" He paused, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. "I want to. I'm just afraid of stepping into the deep end without knowing how it'll end." The fear was palpable, but she could sense that he was ready to wrestle with it. "Me too," Jenna admitted, lowering her voice to a soft sincerity. "But isn't that what makes it worthwhile? We're discovering who we are, beyond the shadows our families cast. We don't have to be defined by them." A flicker of understanding lit his eyes, and Jenna seized the moment. "Let us paint again," she suggested, her heart swelling with hope. "Let us use this mural as our canvas to explore our truths. Each stroke will be a message, a manifestation of our journey. If we can embrace our fears on this canvas, maybe we can embrace them in our lives." A slow, deliberate smile stretched across Anthony's face, and it felt like the first rays of dawn breaking after a long night. "You genuinely believe we can do that?" he asked. "I know we can," she replied with conviction, her own inner resolve fueling their connection. "This is about redefining ourselves, letting go of old stories that don't serve us. Let us create something new. In that moment, they found common ground and understanding that their individual pathways intertwined. The possibility of transformation lay before them like uncharted territory, and Jenna realized this was far beyond the mural. This was about becoming empowered through vulnerability and shared experience. "All right," he said, stepping back to the canvas. With newfound determination, they began anew, colors of hope replacing the shadows of trepidation. They painted with passion and unburdened honesty, speaking their fears, joys, and aspirations through each stroke. As the mural blossomed with their emotions, Jenna felt herself shedding layers of doubt, embracing the person she had always longed to be. Each hue whispered promises of their potential. Anthony's struggle harmonizing with her desires, intertwining in distinct yet unified patterns. Time slipped away as they painted, laughter and banter punctuating the moments of artistic creation. Jenna felt a solid confidence grow within her as she poured herself into each stroke. The mural evolved into more than a work of art, it became a testament to their transformation, a visual narrative echoing both of their struggles, every layer representing their resilience. And as they admired their creation, Jenna caught a glimpse of herself in the colors. She saw clarity, strength, and a vibrant tapestry of her dreams unfurling before her. They had both begun to conquer their fears, step into the unknown, and instead of shrinking beneath the weight of societal expectations, they were rising with newfound purpose. "We did it," Anthony whispered, all bubbling in his voice. "This is more than I ever aimed for." They stood there, side by side, conquered souls igniting together in a harmonious symphony of strength. Each suit of color spoke out against the burdens they no longer had to bear alone. This moment signified not just personal growth or artistic accomplishment, it exemplified a life reimagined through collaboration, vulnerability, and fierce determination, each brushstroke a declaration of identity. Jenna had blossomed into an artist unafraid to reveal her truths, and Anthony had embraced the possibility of forging a new legacy, one rendered not by the expectations of others but by their own vibrant artistry. With fresh clarity and solid confidence, Jenna turned to face Anthony. "Whatever comes next, we'll navigate it together, right?" "Together," he affirmed, a shared understanding palpable between them, an unbreakable bond forged in their collective journey toward authenticity. The mural stood as an enduring testament to their growth, bold, vibrant, and unapologetically real. Jenna beamed with satisfaction at what they had accomplished, a profound sense of fulfillment washing over her. She had not only painted a mural, she had transformed herself, and in doing so, embraced the artist she was always destined to become. As they faced the canvas that radiated with shared stories, Jenna realized she had not only discovered her own narrative but had also begun to understand the beauty of collaboration. It was a legacy they'd both choose to embrace, a legacy defined not by their pasts but by the truths they dared to paint together. Now, as the day drew to a close, Jenna knew that her journey had only just begun. With Anthony by her side, she felt an exhilarating confidence, ready to paint each new day with adventurous strokes that broke past the confines of convention. And as they stood there, hand in hand, she made a silent promise, to invest in herself, in her art, and in the unwavering strength of their emerging bond. This was the transformation she had sought, the moment where chaos had birthed clarity. She was ready to embark on a journey where every color would signify a victory, every stroke would tell a tale of resilience, and together, they would move beyond the shadows into a crescendo of unfiltered light. Now is the time to embrace your own journey. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on more exclusive emotional stories that inspire transformation. Leave a like now to show your support and keep the algorithm strong. Comment your reactions and thoughts about this ending. Your perspectives are invaluable. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread the empowerment and connection you just experienced.